Have you ever paused to consider the origins of true excellence? There are works so sublime they lead people to believe they could only be the result of divine intervention. While it is rare today for artisans to be literally called gods, the idea that a person's character and work could possess a sacred, divine quality was a common recognition across many ancient cultures. Today, the scenario has shifted. When someone delivers a job of such staggering quality that it stands out from the norm, we often assume they aren't human, but rather a robot. Especially in our current age of artificial intelligence, we tend to judge anything extraordinary as not normal. However, there is an ancestral Japanese concept that produces exactly this kind of amazing excellence: shokunin katagi, the spirit of the craftsman. Once you truly understand this spirit, you will find it impossible to accept mediocrity in your life again. But be warned, this path requires striving for excellence in one thing at a time, a journey of years filled with arduous work, pain, and sacrifice. It is a transformation of identity, not just a hobby. The essence of this spirit is captured in the story of an orphan boy in feudal Japan. Following the sudden death of his blacksmith father, the 16-year-old was left with a sick mother, 3 siblings, and an empty workshop. He faced a choice: close the shop and take any menial job, or attempt to continue a legacy he hadn't yet been taught. Choosing the difficult path, he discovered his father's hidden scrolls, ancestral techniques of temperatures and hammer angles that he barely understood. That night, he made a decision that changed everything. He didn't just decide to try making swords. He declared, "I am a blacksmith." In the cultural pressure of feudal Japan, breaking such a word meant social non-existence. His commitment was unwavering because it was no longer about what he did, but who he was. The boy's initial attempts were complete disasters. He spent weeks failing, his family surviving on meager portions of rice and fish. While a normal person would have concluded they lacked the talent and quit, the boy leaned into the essence of shokunin katagi. He stopped rushing and began treating every mistake as a puzzle. He studied the colors of the heated metal from light red to yellow and practiced his hammer swings 1,000 times in the air to align his body perfectly. He began waking up at 3 a.m., driven by an internal fire rather than external pressure. Eventually, he stopped merely following instructions and began to connect with the material. He learned that you do not simply master a technique, you become one with it. To sustain this excellence, the boy transformed his habits into sacred rituals. He maintained a pristine workshop because he believed the chaotic space creates chaotic work. He turned on the oven with the same amount of coal every day to eliminate unpredictability, the enemy of perfection. He realized that speed and quantity are the enemies of quality, choosing to forge each blade as if it were his last. This dedication eventually brought success. Local samurai began to buy his blades, and his family ate well again. Most people would have stopped there, satisfied with good enough, but the spirit of the shokunin pushed him further. He began obsessing over details no one else could see, such as the internal balance and microscopic patterns of the steel. When a samurai complained about the time it took, the boy simply told him to buy elsewhere, but warned that a rushed blade would break when it was needed most. The transformation was completed when a high-ranking commander visited the workshop at 4 a.m. He found the boy polishing the internal part of a sword hilt, a section that would be hidden forever once the sword was assembled. When asked why he wasted time on something invisible, the boy replied, "Because I see it. And if I know it is imperfect, I cannot give it to you." This is the heart of shokunin katagi, an internal standard that refuses to compromise, regardless of who is watching. This journey teaches us that while we cannot be perfect in everything, we must strive for excellence in what is important, our ikigai. It is a reminder that to become a master, one must first embrace the long, disciplined path of the apprentice. It took 3 months for the young blacksmith to forge that specific sword, but he wasn't merely working. He was creating an extension of a commander's soul. Every hammer blow served as a meditation, every fold of the steel was a prayer, and every polish was an act of love. When it was finished, the sword was no longer just a functional tool, it was a masterpiece of art. The balance was so perfect that it seemed to float in one's hand, with an edge sharp enough to cut silk mid-air and a steel pattern resembling waves frozen in time. When the commander held it, he was deeply moved. He felt the blacksmith's soul, every hour of dedication and every perfected detail. He told the boy that the sword was a reflection of the maker himself and promised to carry him into battle. News of this skill spread like wildfire, and within 6 months, Samurai from distant regions made pilgrimages to the village not just to buy weapons, but to commission legacies. This level of mastery represents the essence of excellence. When you become unwavering in your pursuit of perfection, you stop being someone who simply does things and become someone who embodies excellence. This is the heart of Shokunin Katagi, a manual for transforming oneself into someone unbeatable. The first principle is an irreversible commitment to quality. The blacksmith didn't settle for good enough. He perfected details that no one would ever see. Under Shokunin Katagi, you don't work to impress others. You work because mediocrity physically hurts you. If you consistently settle for 80% when you could give 100%, you train your brain to accept a mediocre life. The second principle is taking full responsibility for the result. When a blade failed, the blacksmith didn't blame the metal, the weather, or a lack of teachers. He admitted his mistake and vowed to fix it. Taking responsibility grants you complete control, shifting your mindset from looking for excuses to finding solutions. This internal locus of control is the primary trait found in the top 1% of every field. The third principle is eternal humility. Even as the best in his region, the boy continued to study and test new methods. A true shokunin realizes how much they don't know, which is liberating because it means you only need to be better than you were yesterday. While the ego says you are good enough, the shokunin spirit says you can always improve. The fourth principle prioritizes a sacred process over the final result. By obsessing over every hammer blow rather than the sale, the blacksmith ensured that an extraordinary result was inevitable. This philosophy applies to everything. Whether you are a programmer writing elegant code, a designer perfecting every pixel, or a customer service representative treating every interaction as vital. Excellence lies in the details that people feel, even if they don't consciously notice them. However, excellence requires structure. The blacksmith didn't work only when inspired. He rose religiously at 3:30 a.m. A non-negotiable schedule eliminates the mental energy wasted on indecision. Coupled with a preparation ritual like coffee or meditation, this signals to your brain that it is time for excellence. Consistency is the final key. The blacksmith forged every day regardless of how he felt because a gap destroys momentum and invites mediocrity. Neuroscience shows that even a 3-day gap begins to degrade neural patterns. So even on your worst days, you must do something, even if it is only 10% effort to keep the circuit active. Decades later, the blacksmith, though no longer young, still worked his anvil at dawn. He taught his children that technique without spirit creates empty objects, but spirit with technique creates legacies. Shokunin Katagi isn't about being first. It's about being unattainable. When you reach this point, you stop competing with others and only compete with your past self. You no longer need external recognition because you possess unwavering self-respect. Choosing this path means deciding that mediocrity is no longer acceptable and treating every task as truly important. By embracing this identity, you transform from a common worker into a master whose work transcends generations.